Godzilla's Tin Hut. Dress right. Dress. Come on, get it together. That's better. Well, good morning, Glue Troopers. And I'm using the little lavalier mic right here, the one that pooped out yesterday, and seeing how it works on the cell phone yesterday. It tested out well. So let me know if you have any audio problems. Hopefully the audio will be better now when I use the phone to do these coffees in the morning. So, whole bunch of little things to talk about, nothing major. First off, I had an email from a viewer down in New Zealand who brought up models of airships and blimps, the Hindenburg, the Around the World in 80 Days balloon, and so forth. And he mentioned that there haven't really been that many of them made. And it's not surprising because, first off, there weren't really that many Zeppelins and blimps. And by the way, just real quick, I know most of you know this, but a Zeppelin, which gets the name from Count Ferdinand von Zeppelin, who invented the thing, but technically a Zeppelin as such is defined as a lighter than air vehicle with a rigid airframe, whereas a blimp is essentially a gas bag. It doesn't have, if a Zeppelin deflates, from the outside it looks the same because it's doped skin around this rigid airframe, which is why when you look at the Zeppelins, of course, you see the ribbing in them. Well, whereas a blimp deflates, it just like a balloon goes down. There's a couple of reasons that those, you don't see more of them than you do. First off, people tend to buy what they know or they're interested in, and of course the Hindenburg and the Goodyear Blimp are kind of part of the consciousness. And the other ones, if you're an aviation buff, you know, the Akron, the Macon, you know, those, you know about them, but the average person doesn't. Imagine that they look at the cost of developing them and they're just too expensive. Now, given the number of sales they get, now there is one thing, you know, we might talk about this tonight. That might make just a quick subject. But one other thing is, from what I've been told, the deeper a mold is, the more expensive, the more steel you have to remove. It's just the more expensive it is to make. The larger chunk of steel you need, or beryllium copper or whatever you're making it out of. But also just the amount of work that goes into creating one is increased substantially. Deep parts are expensive. I believe that stagecoach that I built, somebody was telling me that the horses, because they had the deep to make, because they're basically halves that went together, and those deep cuts were the most expensive part of the mold. Those are the ones that later became the Lindbergh stagecoach. And given that they probably were not expecting the greatest sales on Earth, you know, it kind of makes sense that the Zeppelins and balloons and blimps are a little underrepresented. So that's just, I'm kind of spitballing at this. This is my, no, not kind of, this is my guess on why. You know, still, I had the Goodyear Blimp. And actually, for the first year it was produced, I think it was the bicentennial year, it actually was a great seller. It did extremely well. And probably because it was not only a decent model, but it also had, I'm sure because it had some play value, because it had a scrolling marquee, which is all very mechanical, and I actually did get it to kind of work. You know, part of me I've seen them on eBay, pretty complete. They're still around, and they're not that expensive because they're not that sought after, but part of me almost thought about getting one just to see if I could make it all work like I did as a kid. I mean, I bought that little cruiser just because it was motorized by Lindbergh, and the model was, it was okay, but I was not really interested in the ship. I mean, I built the ship. It's in the back of the Tarbus next to the Tirpitz, but I really just want to see if I can get one of those Lindbergh motors to work, and I got it to work about 3 times, and it had some of the parts gotten rusted. I had to, sand them to get the rust off, so I was a little leery they'd work at all, but it was just, eureka, I got one of those little Lindbergh line electric motors to work, and of course as soon as I did, I was like, oh, that was cool, because I'm not going to use them. 98 cents, you can get a perfect working little already pre-made motor these days, but that wasn't the way it was back in those days. I know I've asked this question a long time ago, but if you ever got one of those little Lindbergh build-it-yourself motors to work, just put a thumbs up or a mention down below. One of you had told me that your dad was like an electrical engineer or something, so he got it to work like whiz-bang, and I'm like, score. on now for something completely different. I was, I got another email. A lot of things I'll talk about on this, by the way, are just from emails you guys send me. You know, like I said, I'm not this bright or creative. You send me the ideas. One of the viewers was talking about when modeling skills come in handy outside of modeling, you know, like, you know, if you break your mom's favorite teacup or something, you know, put it back together, buddy. She'll never know until it goes in the washer. No, I never did that. I'm totally making that up. I'm just having a little fun here. But one viewer is restoring a car, and he needed the badge, which, you know, the badges on the old cars are usually painted in enamels. And well, yeah, they were painted with, I believe it was enamels that went on the badge. They put the heavy coatings on them and everything so they could withstand the weather. And apparently people wanted, you know, $400 or $500 for a nice condition badge. So he just basically redid the one that was on the car, and looks good. And I hope he doesn't mind. I have to show a picture here. Quick side note, if you send me a picture, unless you tell me for some reason, do not show this picture, which I don't think anyone ever has. Otherwise, why would you send it to me? But good chance it might pop up on the on here in the YouTube. Speaking of the YouTube and technology in general, there's somebody was chatting with me recently and was telling me that they actually, I guess they had to get a new phone or something, and where they're at, there's limited options on service, and that they had to use that company's mail service and phone service. I mean, kind of when you buy from certain companies, depending on where you live in the world, I guess you're kind of locked into using their service. And, you know, technology is very much a double-edged sword, I guess. I mean, without it, I couldn't do this show. We couldn't have all this fun, but at the same time, they kind of, you know, get you and, you know, give you a phone cheap to buy their service. You know, hey, kid, first one's free. Well, I think we should learn from them, you know. When it comes to people who might be interested in modeling, yeah, hey, kid, first one's free. But, you know, I was thinking about that. Imagine if you buy a tester's model, only tester's paint and only tester's glue and only, you know, tester's putty would work on it. And, you know, for a long time, those were the only options I had where I was at. Okay. Question of the day related to this. When is a time that your modeling skills worked for you or were handy for something outside of modeling? Whether it's painting, putty, gluing together, whatever. And it also brought up kind of a secondary question when I was talking about the testers. When I was growing up, literally there was just tester's glue, tester's paint, tester's putty. That was all there was. Because I didn't live anywhere near a really fully equipped hobby shop. And I don't even remember, I remember Carter's Sporting Good in Tallahassee had a real good selection of stuff, but it was just one little section. When was the first time you guys, another question, well, I have two questions of the day. You know what, we can talk about this tonight. For tonight's live stream, and I need to make a note. I'm going to make a note, John, I swear. What's the first time you went into what we might call a right proper hobby shop? I mean, a seriously dedicated hobby shop that kind of had everything. And I don't even remember the first time, but Carter's would be the first place I went into that carried a lot of stuff. I do remember in the late 80s, right around 1990, when I was living up in Maryland, they did have an actual squadron shop physical store, and I went there as often as I could. So I'm going to call that the first time I remember going to a really dedicated hobby shop. And the thing that made the squadron shop different than a lot of them was it was pretty much all just kit models. It was like the Red Caboose in Midtown. And somebody told me there's, I think Andy's hobby headquarters is that way. It's strictly styrene and, models. And so, kudos to all the folks who made that happen. And time changes, technology changes, and it's a double-edged sword. Without certain advancements in technology, it would be very difficult for these small companies to survive, ones that are doing 3,000-4,000 pops at a time. And I should say shots at a time. and manufacturing kits in the tens of thousands or in the singles of thousands. Without modern technology, they wouldn't be able to make new molds. The math wouldn't add up. And I think I've mentioned this. I was told recently that the modern mold making techniques are very good, but the materials that are used don't last as long. But given that you're not shooting 3 million models like you used to, I guess that's kind of a self-fulfilling, it's not really a problem. So the hobby's still going, when in many ways we have more players than we ever had before, because in some ways the barrier to get entry has gone down a little bit, or maybe a lot. But then of course it is a business, and people say, well, wait, if I make this, I'm only going to sell 10,000 units. What's the point? So it seems like a lot of people in the industry are in it because they love it, and God bless them for that. And well, anyway, guys, I have a busy day on the Tarbis ahead of me, and then this afternoon I'm going to start getting ready for the live stream, 9 p.m. Eastern, 0100 Zulu. Hope to see you guys there, and as always, model on. Hey, sweetie. Yeah, I did it again. I went out the Tarbis just to grab something and wound up working on my models. I was over there putting the canopy on the B25 and masking off and shooting the gray second coat on the Jaguar and putting an initial white coat on the Astronaut. And all I went out to do was go out there and grab a t-shirt. I know. I'm sorry. I will repair. Yes, my lord. I hear and obey.